impossible problem that is standing before our face and have resisted us is because we don't have the measure of faith to receive the grace that will deal with it. Just as we have measures of faith, so we have measures of grace. The measure of faith of mustard seed level can receive a measure of grace that will uproot mountains. That is what Jesus said. Not physical mountains. Mountains also represent demonic resistance against our lives. And you understand why it is so. Now, Satan will never allow believers to ascend the realm of faith. He will do everything, every trick, every device. He will use every device, use every trick to make sure that believers don't come to the realm of faith, where the measures of faith can be collected. If you look at the church today globally, there is no real raw exploit as it was in the days of our fathers. We only have manifestation of magic. A lot of magic in the church. That is what we have. Because if you cannot come to the realm of faith, where measures of faith are collected, you cannot dispense the power of God. So in your helplessness, you will key into magic, some ignorantly, because you have to work in the supernatural. So you key into magic and begin to use water, salt, and all this thing. And when they ask you, you will say it's a faith booster. Well, you are going to understand. Jesus said it is through praying and fasting we get to the realm where we collect the measure. He didn't say it is when you pray with oil. It didn't say it is when you pray with salt. So I'm just using the salt to boost the faith of the person. You see, you are not boosting faith. You are practicing magic. Faith is not boosted by the use of shadows. Rather, the use of shadows initiate some things in the spirit realm that are not of God. Demonic things in the spirit realm. And that brings me to why the doctrine of going to the mountain is dangerous to the believers of today. Why it is dangerous to the believers of today. Apart from making sure people never ascend the realm of faith, it has other dangerous consequences. Satan will prefer us using what look like than what it is. He will prefer us using what look like than what it is. He will prefer us going to mountains that come into the realm of faith. As we have seen in the book of look at the way God does things. He brought a realm of faith on the mountain that Jesus took the disciples to. That mountain used to be Mount Horeb. That was the very place Moses encountered God at first when he saw the burning bush around that environment. He took the sheep to those mountains to find something to graze. And he came across the encounter that sent him to Egypt. And God told him that as a sign that he spoke to him, they will come back to that mountain to worship. So the same mountain was where they got to. So it has different names in scriptures. You hear Horeb, you hear Sinai. They're all in the same region. It may not be one mountain. It may be spreading all over. You hear Horeb, you hear Sinai. Now, you also discover Elijah. It was the same mountain he went when God fed him twice and he walked for 40 days. And it was when he got there, he received the mandate to eliminate Baal. Or let me say the strategy to eliminate Baal. So it was also on the same mountain that Jesus took Peter, James, and John to, who later became the leaders of the church. The first leader of the church was James. When Herod killed him, Peter took over. When Peter died, John took over. And John was the one who wrapped up that first 100 years of the church that was full of accuracy. It was an apostolic entity. After John died, years later, depreciation entered the church. So those three. Now, if you look at it, the three men I've mentioned, Moses, Elijah, and Jesus, when they got to Moses' days, you see the cloud descending on the mountain. Elijah's days, you see earthquake. God released earthquake, God released other things, and he now went to stand, and he now had God in a still small voice. So you see physical manifestations. Now in Jesus' days, you see the cloud descending, and you see Moses and Elijah again appearing to him on the same spot. That tells you God opened a portal there. Do you understand me? And another thing is telling us, I'm showing you the physical, I'm bringing a spiritual effect on the physical so that you understand that the physical is speaking about the spiritual. So that when you now come under the dispensation of grace, you separate between the chaff and the wheat. The chaff is the physical mountain. The wheat is what it means, which is a realm of faith. Moses stepped into a realm of faith. That's why he came back with a tablet of stone. Elijah stepped into the realm of faith. That's why he came back to recruit Elisha. Jesus stepped into the realm of faith. That was why he came down. He was able to cast the spirit out. So that is God telling us the mountain signifies a realm of faith. So if we keep going after the significance of it have been made clear to us, then we are engaging ourselves in a lot of dangerous things. Last night the Lord spoke to me, and I never knew that before in my life, that people can go to the mountains to pray, as is happening right now, and get their destinies locked up. That's what I said to me last night. I was so shocked about it. I've not thought about that before. That people have been going to mountains, and when they go there to pray, they don't come back the same. They get their destinies locked up. I never knew there was such captivity. Me, I thought it was just interaction with unclean spirit. And he began to speak to me about that. That is why, and I begin to look at the scriptures. Certain things I'm going to share with you today. You see, the enemy will prefer us going to the physical than the spiritual. The spiritual mountain is a realm of faith. It has nothing to do with the physical. Do you understand what I'm saying? Let me take you through some things that happen in Bible days, so long as mountain worship is concerned. You see, when God began to show me about how people get captivity, get captured on the mountains, how destinies are locked up, and how access code to the spirit realm is open into people's lives when they go there, the spirit realm of Satan, and how they receive certain things. I saw them like nails. I saw the things like nails being driven into their bodies when they go to those mountains to pray. And I begin to ask the Lord, so I begin to realize, this is why I have the passion to talk against this mountain thing. Because I never saw it in that light before. In the place of study and in the place of prayer, the Lord now showed me the unique captivity of mountain worship in Kenya. And why he stirred my spirit to scream against going to the mountains in Kenya. Are you understanding me? Of course, there is a lie that is being spread in certain circles here in Kenya about the Mount Kenya. The nation was named from that mountain. That's what I realized. And there have been mountain worship before Christianity came. And the Lord showed me that the ancient spirits have been loosed. And that's why people are going back to the mountain. Why were they loose, Lord? He said, because many years ago, there were righteous men in this nation whose righteousness bounded those spirits and paralyzed their activities. And the Lord said that was the Hezekiah generation. He said when they died, some of them were ministers of the gospel. He said when they died, the spirit was loosed. Because it is the purity of the saints that bind demons. So when the spirits were loosed, they begin to parade themselves in the church and other places. In the church, they begin to stir preachers to preach about going to mountain for prayers. Because the spirits are looking for worship. So that's why you see there's an increase of mountain worship in the church. Going to the mountain, and people are defending it because the spirits have entered them to defend it. That's what the Lord said to me. The spirit have entered them to defend it, to serve as elders at the gate, to defend it and make sure whoever cry against it is resisted. And now say it's not just speaking the church, it's speaking the secular, in other strata of the nation also. So I remember one day I saw the former deputy president going to, it was a photo facing the mountain and things like that. And you see, look at the scripture some of them use. Zechariah chapter 3. Zephaniah chapter 3. They claim this is referring to Kenya. And they use it to go to the mountain. Zephaniah chapter 3. But we're going to realize that it had nothing to do with Kenya. It has nothing to do with Kenya. Zephaniah is after Habakkuk, before Haggai. So Zephaniah chapter 3, verse 9. For then I will restore to peoples a pure language. This is talking about the restoration of the prayer language. That they all may call on the name of the Lord to serve him with one accord. In fact, if you have my kind of Bible, you will see it is titled Israel's cleansing. This is the cleansing of the church. It's not referring to Kenya, but I'll tell you why they say it's Kenya. He said, from beyond the rivers of Ethiopia, my worshippers, the daughters of my dispensed one, shall bring my offering. So this is why they say it is Kenya. It's because they say Kenya is beyond Ethiopia. And then I said, in that day, you shall not be ashamed for any of your deeds in which you transgress against me. For then I will take away from your midst those who rejoice in your pride, and you shall no longer be haughty in my holy mountain. So they now call Mount Kenya the holy mountain. Because they said beyond Ethiopia is Kenya. So Mount Kenya is the holy mountain. So that's why people go there to lift up their hands. That's what I saw when I was studying about these things. Now, listen carefully. Look at what the white man wrote about Mount Kenya. Listen. He said, Mount Kenya is a legend. Speak of Mount Kenya to be a dwelling place of gods. Gods, Gods, dwelling place of gods. That is unclean spirit. He said, especially where it scrap the heavens, the place that the cloud descends. They say that's where the gods live. Now you go and face a thing that the gods live. But in your heart, you are calling it a holy mountain of God. And by the time you face, by the time you are through whatever you are doing, the impact you get from those gods will be registered on your life. And there are no words to describe what the result will be. Standing on a scripture that is referring to Israel. Historically, Israel. Prophetically, the end time church. Everywhere you see in the Bible, my holy mountain, is talking about the church. Mount Zion, not Mount Kenya. But the gods that dwell on the mountain needs worship. They crave for worship. And the righteous men that binded their activities have died. So the gods are now parading. But the church, wherever they encourage going to the mountain to pray, these gods lives there. Any church that encourages going to mountains to pray, these gods live there. And why it's very dangerous for Kenya is because the foundation of the nation was rooted in that mountain. So when you now ask believers to go to any mountain within this nation, even outside, so long as you promote the mountain worship, you are connecting them to these gods. Are you understanding what I'm saying here? Listen carefully. They believe, from what I studied, that the cloud that shroud the summit of the mountain are a blessings, and they are the harbinger of rain that nourishes the land of Kenya. So they believe that the prosperity of the nation is coming from that mountain. But physically, there are two rivers that cut into that mountain. You get my point? So it is just a natural phenomenon that God planted there, that spirits have taken over, and they are swaying the heart of people to worship the invisible thing. I mean, the spirit in the invisible realm. I want you to understand, if Christ is not in the heart of people, they can worship other gods. If Christ is not in the heart of people, they can worship other gods. So this is why the mountain worship today is very, very destructive. Very, very destructive to the believer. Under the shadows, even when they were going to mountains, look at their understanding. When our fathers were going to mountain to pray, look at their understanding. Right, number one. In Bible days, mountains represent a place of solitude, closeness to God, and a space to be away from distraction. I mean, to them, not even to us, to our fathers. Moses, Elijah, and the rest of them went to the mountain. He said the mountain for them represented a place of solitude. So if they are looking for solitude, they go to the mountain. Represented a place of solitude, closeness to God, and a space to be away from distraction. A space to be away from distraction. So when you see Moses going to the mountain, because he felt it was a place of solitude, and he knew for him it was actually going to collect the stones. He didn't know it was going to collect stones actually. Do you understand me? He never knew. But he was just going there. He felt it's a place of solitude. It's a place of closeness to God. It's a space to be far away from distraction. In fact, then they believe that when they get to that peak, that they can achieve a privacy. You get my point? They can achieve a privacy for an experience with God. That's what they believe in the days of Moses. Now, if you look at this, they did not go to the mountain to conduct deliverance. Even Jesus, who went to the mountain, was not going to conduct deliverance. He conducted deliverance on the street. Went to the mountain for this reason. So, if deliverance is being conducted on the mountain, you know it's demonic. Because even Jesus never took any blind man to the mountain. He never took any oppressed person to the mountain. So when preachers take people who are suffering to the mountain, they are going to receive powers from the gods of the mountain. And why people are accepted in Kenya is because there's a foundation already laid for mountain worship. In Nigeria, in places where they accept the mountain, basically in the West, because they have also been worship on high hills. I mean, African worship on mountains. Places where people are not aware of going, like my own place, we're not aware that you go to the mountain to seek anything. So, the Christianity don't flow in that direction. Do you understand what I'm saying here? Listen carefully. With what I've given you to write, you realize that these guys never went to the mountain to conduct deliverance. Never took anybody who was poor to the mountain so that they pray for them to be rich. People who do that don't belong to Jesus. It's not a kingdom practice. And I will show you more in scriptures. It's not a kingdom practice. I'm taking my time going just step by step so that you have sufficient revelation on this thing. Because we're going to pray after it. We'll pray after it. If there's anybody who has ever visited a mountain, you have to receive an encounter with God today. Because what the Lord showed me right now, last night, I was shocked that people's destiny are locked up when they get there. For you to pray prayers that will bring deliverance, you have to have knowledge. So that's why I'm sharing this. Are you understanding me? Number two, in the Bible days, the act of climbing the mountain to them represent a spiritual journey upwards towards a closer relationship with God. The act of climbing the mountain to them represents a spiritual journey upwards towards a closer relationship with God. So, can you imagine why they were going to the mountain even? It's different from why people go to the mountain today. Even if we are in the dispensation of mountains, you don't carry suffering people to the mountain to receive deliverance. Because they never did. When Moses went to the mountain, he went alone. Jesus went alone. He carried Peter, James, and John. They didn't get there. And when the man said, your disciples could not pray for my son, he now said, okay, follow me to the mountain. It's on the mountain that deliverance can be achieved. Those are satanic deliverances. And I will show you shortly. Deliverances supervised from the second heaven. Deliverances supervised from the second heaven by the demon of deliverance is what people get on the mountain. Because deliverance in God's kingdom is not released on the mountain. Jesus did his own on the street. Are you understanding what I'm saying? So if you look at these things I'm giving you alone, they can help you understand that the mountain worship in our generation is completely occultic, satanic, witchcraft, the return of ancient gods is what we are experiencing in the church today. And like what Isaiah said, God lamented through Isaiah and said, who is blind but my shepherd? So the so-called fathers are blind. The pastors are blind. They don't see that the ancient gods have returned. And in order to persuade the saints to worship them, they have to use scriptures read and taught out of context. Like Zephaniah that I just showed you, How can Mount Kenya be the holy mountain in Zephaniah?